I have the ability to understand animals. Today they all said the same thing. For some background, I've always been able to understand animals, but I never knew it was an ability and thought I was going insane. My earliest memory of my ability was when my parents brought home a rescue dog as a gift after I begged them for a puppy, and the dog started telling me it was going to kill me if I mistreated him like his previous owners, and I burst into tears. My parents assumed it was me being scared until I told them what he'd said, and their faces showed a concerning look I only grew to become all too familiar with. Shortly after, I was thrown from psychologist to psychologist, becoming an object of research for varying antipsychotics as the voices never went away. It was only in my early teens that I really started to listen. I was at the tail end of my rebellious streak and had unofficially been off my medication, and on my walks to school I'd hear all manner of things, from birds planning how they'd build their nests to the ants having orders barked at them for their strict regimen and loyalty to their queen. I even got to know some regulars. There was an old dog that would sit on the porch of a house on my route named Gus. He told me his actual name was Tom and went into great detail about his life and how he was briefly astray before being taken in and living a calm life away from his primitive past. It's not all it's made up to be, though. People still thought I was crazy when they caught me chatting to various bugs on the wall or having more profound interactions with pets beyond the condescending "who's a good boy" spiel. Once I was out of school and in the workplace, I chose to ignore the animals I came across, which became increasingly difficult as I'd gotten to know all the creatures in my immediate vicinity, and I couldn't afford to move away, so I always had a handful of voices calling for me on my commute, and it was like I was right back to being insane. A full year passed like this, ignoring the animals I had come to know and appreciate. I got along fine until they all stopped talking to me altogether, and it was only then that I thought about what I'd done. I'd taken away their only bridge of communication between their world and ours, their only way to be really understood, and this gave me a change of heart. So on my day off I went out and tried to talk to as many animals as I could to re-establish our connection and offer back what I'd ripped from them. But I heard nothing. I hadn't noticed it before, but the world was more silent than I'd ever known it to be, but through my ignorance I never noticed. I ran to every creature and animal I saw, desperate to help, to listen, to hear something, but all I got back was stern silence and several pleas to stop harassing people's pets. I got so desperate that I went back to Tom's porch, in the hopes that the old boy had pushed through the years and could be the voice of reason, but he wasn't there. Obviously he had passed. No dog could have lived as long, especially one who was already as old as him. However, there was another, more spry-looking hound, in Tom's old spot, so I approached him. Again I was met with silence and decided to just rant to the dog. After all, it wasn't going to stop me, was it? I went for ages, tearing up about my guilt, how I know what I'd done, and begged for forgiveness. Then I heard something, whispered quietly underneath a breath. I turned to the hound to listen closer and could just barely make out what he was saying. "You take from us, we take from you." I was taken aback and walked away slowly. The dog never looked at me, but I'm glad. As creepy as it was, I didn't want to face this thing head on. I walked home dejected and hardly noticed the now increasing cacophony around me that was the noise I'd been missing for years. But it was off. It was in unison, all of them repeating the same phrase. "You take from us, we take from you." It followed me home, more and more voices adding to the terrifying symphony as animals flocked to my location. I made it home and I'm now putting this post out. My house is surrounded and there's more voices joining by the minute. What do they want to take from me?